Good morning, Josh.
Good morning.
You look cozy.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for stoking the ad on fire this morning.
You're welcome.
Coming in for a warm-up break.
Yep.
Good morning, Nader. Off to do chores.
Yep.
It's cold out there. I'm glad you're all bundled.
Yep.
Good morning, love.
Good morning.
What's it like out there getting the firewood for these fires?
It's cold.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're in panic.
Right, you're like, hurry, hurry, fast, get back inside.
I'm dying.
Must survive.
This is why we left Alaska.
Right, we're having Alaska-like weather,
We are.
which is unusual for it to last this long.
It's
Here.
been, what, a solid week?
Over a week.
A little more.
Below freezing day and night, and we have another almost week to go before we get above freezing.
Yeah, which is very uncharacteristic. It must be global cooling.
It must be. Good morning, J-Bud.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Good.
Good. Nice and warm by the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. How are you girls this morning? Welcome back to Homestead, guys. It is cold, so cold. We're not used to it being so cold here in Missouri. I mean, we're in zone 6, so it can get really cold, but usually it's not cold for this long. Last night got down to like -2. I think it's like 5 degrees out right now and snowing. It's really beautiful, but super cold. So I'm gonna go into the heated addition that's behind our house here. That's where our pantry is, and we're gonna have a little pantry tour. It's warm in here. Sorry about the lighting. The lights that we have in here are LED and they're kind of orangey yellow, as you can tell. Please excuse the poor lighting. We're gonna head to the pantry here in a sec, but just wanted to mention that even with our rocket mask going non-stop for the last couple days and nights, we did end up finally having our pipes freeze. So we've been without running water for a couple days. So thankfully that first night that the pipes froze, Kip had filled up a bunch of water bowls in our bathtub, and then I had also filled up all of our pots and everything, which I normally do just as a habit anyway. So we definitely have plenty of water. It's just difficult to get right now because we have to go down to our spring with our water jugs and fill those up multiple times every day. Not to mention also having to water all of the animals. So it's been busy around here in the last few days. Here we go, over to the pantry. So this is our second pantry. We do have a pantry in our main cabin that we've been using for years now, ever since we moved into that space. But those of you who've been following our channel know we're working on an addition to our tiny house, and that includes this pantry, which is for extra food storage mostly. For those who don't know, we are a family of 9 endeavoring to build an off-grid permaculture homestead on 20 acres in southern Missouri Ozarks. We're about 7 years in, so although we do produce a lot of our own food, we still are purchasing a lot of our own food too. And just in general, because time is limited here on the homestead, if something is going to be really difficult to grow, like take a lot of space, and be really labor intensive to harvest, those items we would rather just purchase and store up in bulk. And a lot of those items are really easy to store in bulk. Although we've done a little bit with growing our own dry beans and popcorn and dent corn, some nuts and things, we find it's a lot more cost effective as far as our time goes to just purchase those things in bulk. However, the things that are fairly easy to grow and produce off the land, those things we like to just eat fresh as much as we can and not spend the time having to preserve them. So I'll share a little bit more about that as we get into our pantry tour today. So we decided to do it all in cedar in hopes that that would keep some of our bugs away. We have a lot of bugs here in Missouri. So both the walls and the shelving is all made out of cedar. So kind of my goal for this pantry is to have 6 months worth of extra food storage, and it allows us to buy foods in bulk so that we can get things at a better price. So we just started being able to do that again. We use Azure Standard for most of our bulk buying. So just real quick, down on the bottom floor level, I don't want to have anything in here on the floor in the future. However, our root cellar does not have shelving yet, and so we've got things that would be going out in the root cellar. We have cabbages in this box here. Got another box here that's got a couple different kinds of beets and some rutabagas. This box has red potatoes. Got some down here, which we got from Azure Standard, and I keep the extra down in that box. We probably won't store potatoes in the root cellar in the future because it's a little too cold out there. I just checked the temperature actually this morning to make sure it hadn't gotten below freezing, and it was right at freezing. However, we have vents that are not closed off at the moment, so hopefully once those vents are closed off, it will stay above freezing and we'll be able to store like the beets, rutabagas, carrots, cabbages, apples, pears, anything that kind of needs a little bit cooler, damp environment we will be putting in the root cellar in the future. But for now, the floor level is pretty cool. So we've got the cabbages, the beets, potatoes, we've got some onions in here in boxes just down on the floor. Then the next level up, down on the bottom, so it's a little easier to pull out, we made the shelving spacing just big enough for these 5-gallon buckets. And so we've got various things stored in the 5-gallon buckets all around on the first shelf up. And then I've got these bins that I use for, we've got some sweet potatoes from last year's garden. I also have some of those in the main house. The red potatoes, we've got some onions, kind of the last of our summer harvest onions, and then some Azure Standard onions as well. I'm hoping to actually have some hooks on this back wall here in order to hang those bins. That way we'll have more shelf space for more buckets, because I've got extra buckets stored out here in front of the pantry area. Also be able to put some of the extra buckets in the root cellar as well. Then the next 3 shelves up on either side, working on filling those up with 1 month's worth of dry food storage per shelf. So each shelf here equals about 1 month dry food storage for our family. And then on the very top shelf, just got some extra things. We use calcium chloride in the summer to deal with humidity, which we have no problem with right now. It's very low humidity. We've got our oil lamp and oil, extra tea kettle, ice cream maker, French fry cutter, which we just got from a subscriber. Thank you very much. This is a thermal cooker. So in the summertime, I can use that if needed. I can just heat up something on the stovetop or a propane stovetop and then stick it in there for the day and it'll finish cooking in that, and that saves us on propane in the summertime. And then we've got our really big pan for when we process chickens. On the top side over here, just kind of got some extra bulk food items and items that we don't need this amount per month. They're just kind of extras. So some apple cider vinegar. This is avocado oil, and collagen is just an extra supplement that we have on hand right now. We've got Kip's drinks that he has over here. He really likes kombucha. These are just a whole bunch of extra egg cartons that I had in my other pantry, and they were taking up so much room and they kept falling all the time, so I brought them out here. The reason we have so many extra egg cartons is because every spring we have way too many eggs and we end up just giving a bunch of eggs away to people, and sometimes they bring the egg cartons back, sometimes not, so we just have extra on hand in case we need them. Alright, so now I'll kind of share some of the individual items that we have stored in here. I'll say from the beginning that I am not a canner. I don't really prefer to use canning as a preservation method. However, I do want to eventually preserve our own tomatoes because I believe that the heating process of the tomatoes sometimes can increase some of the nutrition in tomatoes, as well as berries and rhubarb. I want to make our own jams. But other than tomato products and jams, I don't really plan on doing a whole lot of canning. I really prefer to use the root cellar because then I can just put everything in its whole food form into containers and on the shelf, and I don't have to spend all those hours and hours of time processing by canning, which is wonderful if you enjoy doing that. So if you are a canner and you love doing that, that's awesome. I also enjoy fermenting, and so some of the ways that we preserve our food is through fermenting. But my absolute favorite way to prepare food is fresh harvested off of the land and eaten that same day. And so I'll just kind of work through the different food groups and share what we do on our homestead and what we're hoping to do, and then give you an idea of some of the things here in the pantry that we're working on storing up. So let's start with fruits and vegetables. For fruits, we predominantly eat apples, bananas, and wild blueberries, all of which at this time we get from Walmart. Organic. We do have fruit trees that are getting close to production, so when those start producing, we'll also be able to have our own apples and pears that we'll store in the root cellar as long as we can, and also eat fresh. We do have a lot of our own wild and cultivated berries of different kinds, and so we like to eat those fresh, and I do preserve those into jam as well. I'm still new at making jam, and so my goal is to have enough of our own jam to get us through the winter and into the next season of harvesting fresh strawberries. Rhubarb I kind of throw in the category of fruits because we use it like a fruit to make sauces and jams out of. We do also get dried mango from the store as a treat that we have on our day of rest, our Shabbat. It's kind of just a little special treat that's a quick, easy snack. One other fruit that I forgot to mention that we absolutely love is dried cranberries. And we get those in bulk from Azure Standard because they're the only place that I can find them at a reasonable price where they don't have added sugar. The ones that we get are only sweetened with a little bit of apple juice. We're out of them right now. We get another load this week from Azure. So dried cranberries is something that we keep on hand as well for fruit. Vegetables, it's our goal to be able to harvest fresh greens every single day of the year. We're not there yet. Winter is obviously the hardest time. We were able to harvest a couple times a week up until about a week ago. So we're hoping to build a bigger greenhouse, and that way we'll be able to have fresh harvested greens every day off the land. We also hope to be able to produce most of all the rest of our own vegetables. I really like Jovial tomato products, and so although I do hope to preserve my own tomatoes someday, we don't use a whole lot, and these guys just do such an awesome job that we're just buying them in bulk for now and storing up. We don't use a whole lot of tomato products, so eventually we should be able to preserve enough for a full year for our family, being that we don't use very much. We do the crushed tomatoes, and we do salsa and a tiny bit of ketchup. That's about it for tomato products. Other vegetables, that's kind of a fruit as well, but other vegetables, once we have our root cellar, we'll be able to store a whole lot more. And now that we have this, actually now that we have this pantry, we'll be able to store a lot more too. So we want to do all of our own garlic and onions, potatoes, sweet potatoes, cabbage, other brassicas. The list is quite long. What we can grow in our gardens now that they're getting bigger, we've been expanding every year, is just super exciting. I won't be canning those vegetables, but I do freeze some green beans and greens like kale and chard. A little bit of that goes in our freezer each year. And then also we ferment green beans and cabbage. Those all will be able to go in our root cellar. Other than that, it'll just be the whole foods, either from the root cellar or from our pantry or fresh from the land. So proteins, meat, we also do our own beef and poultry. We have lots of birds out there, and so when we have extra roosters or we have birds that are starting to get old and just their quality of life has gone down, we'll use those for our meat. We usually have about 1 beef cow per year that we're able to preserve in the way of freezing, thanks to a kind neighbor who allows us to put beef in his freezer. We're blessed yearly by some awesome neighbors who give us venison. We also use the neighbor's freezer for that. So meat is one of those things that you really have to have a good way to preserve it. And freezing for us is the easiest way right now, thanks to our neighbors. If it came to the point where we couldn't use the neighbor's freezer, we'd have to find other ways to preserve meat. So I might end up canning meat in that case. I also put eggs in the category of meat because they're mostly protein, and we get those fresh daily off the land. I don't ever preserve them. If we have extras, I just give them away. So it's just in the winter time where we some days don't have enough eggs, and that's okay. I figure we don't have to have eggs every single day. It's probably good to take a break anyway. That's protein. The only proteins other than meat off the land, or sometimes like chicken, whole chicken from the health food store. The only other meats we really do are tuna and salmon. This is one of our favorite tunas, but it is more expensive. I think Kip found this on sale. And this is the salmon we use, just a pink salmon, wild caught. Alright, so next I'll talk about dairy. We do have a small dairy herd, and so we consume fresh raw milk in season. I also use that milk to make yogurt and some cheeses. We haven't had enough extra milk at this point to make butter. I've made butter in the past when we purchased milk, but at this point we would have to have a lot of milk to be able to make the amount of butter that we go through. So in the future, if we're able to milk multiple cows and have extra milk, we'll probably make our own butter, but we're just not at that point right now. So we purchase butter through Azure Standard and store that in our freezer. Other than the fresh dairy that we have in season from our cows, we do purchase a little bit of sour cream from the store, and then cheese, which is kind of like a treat. We only really use that for pizza or for special meals for birthdays and things. So the next category I'll talk about is I'll lump these things together. They're kind of not really all the same as far as nutrition, but grains, legumes, and nuts and seeds. You've got the more carbohydrates in the grains, you've got more fats in the nuts and seeds, more protein in the legumes. Those are all kind of their own categories, but I'll just kind of put them all together for simplicity. So all of those things are the things that we have chosen to purchase and store in bulk, because it just takes a lot of space and time and effort to grow and harvest your own. So we will continue to experimented with peanuts, and we're probably going to continue to try and grow more peanuts. We've done quite a bit of dry beans, and we'll continue to do a little bit of dry beans. Popcorn we've done just kind of for fun, but really you have to grow so much of it in order to have enough popcorn for a large family for a year. So we use predominantly either black beans or navy beans. Mostly navy bean actually, but they were out of navy beans at Azure Standard when we did our order last, so I ended up getting the black beans. And then we use red lentils, and that's about it for legumes, because we've got a few people in our family that have a little bit of issues with too many legumes. Almost forgot this. Red lentil pasta. That's one of our favorite pastas that we use. Real quick before we get to the grains that we use, I did spend quite a few months keeping track of each of these different items and how much we use per month. And then I decided to use containers that match those amounts. So I've got some half-gallon jars, I've got more quart-sized jars, and then for the things that I felt would work in like a Ziploc bag, we put those into totes on the shelf. I just wanted to have them a little bit more protected from any bugs or dust and that sort of thing. So I've got one tote on each of these 6 shelves, and that's for kind of the bagged items to help protect them. Alright, so we have white rice. Our favorite is jasmine white rice. In the back behind that is popcorn. We do popcorn night once a week, and so that half-gallon jar is what we need for our family for a whole month. Next is buckwheat. I would have put the buckwheat into half-gallon jars, but I didn't have enough left, so they just went into these old sauerkraut jars that I reuse all the time for all sorts of things. So this is whole buckwheat that we can grind in our grain mill if we want, or we can make it into some kind of a porridge or something. Many of you know we were grain free for years, so we're kind of just coming back into using grains, and I'm still at the point where I kind of do half and half grain free and sourdough einkorn or a little bit of buckwheat. So I've got in the main house, I've got a big bucket of the already ground flour, and then I've also got buckets of the grain that we can grind in our grain mill. I usually mix the sourdough half and half with our grain-free options, and none of them are in here right now. I keep arrowroot flour and blanched almond flour in the kitchen, and those are the main flours that we use. I just recently added in buckwheat, so that's kind of new on the menu. And then the other grain that we use a lot of is oat flakes. So I've got buckets and buckets of oat groats and oat flakes. I've got a main bucket in the house, and then I've got more buckets down on the bottom shelves in here in the pantry. For seeds, we have some sprouted sunflower seeds, also in a reused jar, and pumpkin seeds. Those are the two seeds that we use. Not a lot, but a little bit. I'll throw them on top of salads sometimes, or grind them up to make a salad dressing, that sort of thing. Okay, so then moving on, we've got kind of our condiments, and we use coconut aminos, just regular Bragg's liquid aminos, and ketchup. Those are pretty much our condiments, other than salsa. I guess you can consider that a condiment, which I hope to eventually make all of our own salsa and either ferment it or can it. But for now we get just any kind of organic salsa. So next category, I guess, is fats. We use mostly butter, but we also have ghee on hand just in case. I don't use this regularly. It's kind of just in case we need it thing. If we run out of butter, we could use that. I do use coconut and red palm oil shortening a little bit as well, so I've got some of that. And then the other main fat that we use is coconut oil, extra virgin coconut oil, and then we use avocado oil as well, which is kind of new for us. I didn't use avocado oil much until just recently. So we don't use it a whole lot. I use it mostly for popping popcorn. So it's kind of in its own spot here. I don't really have avocado oil on each individual shelf yet. And then last, we kind of just have some miscellaneous things here. I got some applesauce, apricot applesauce, kind of as a treat. So that's extra that we don't normally have on hand. I've got extra supplement powder here. A lot of people have asked about our supplement powders that we use, and it's the Synergy Company. I have used the Synergy Company for years now. I love them. I haven't found anything better for the price. However, we are subscribed, so we get a monthly shipment, and that means we get 10% off plus free shipping. They have pretty much every supplement you could need, other than they don't have a vitamin D3 K2, I don't think. So we usually get that elsewhere. There might be a couple other supplements that we get elsewhere, like zinc. That's one they don't have. But they have a lot of really high quality, whole food, organic, fresh, freeze-dried kind of things. So beet powder is one that we use, carrot, berry powder, kale powder, vitamin C, and then there's been various other ones that we've used from them as well. Highly recommend them for supplements. Alright, and then we have tart cherry juice and lemon juice. Those are two things that I put in my morning drink. We have coconut milk here. This is just for a treat if we want it. I make ice cream out of that, and so I just kind of keep that as a, not for winter day, but maybe summer day if we want to make some homemade ice cream. If we don't have enough cream on hand, we could use the coconut milk. And then I keep almond milk as well because Kip has issues with milk. He's lactose intolerant and has a dairy allergy. So although our A2A2 cow's milk is much better for him, he can have like the cheese and things that I make, he just kind of has an aversion to drinking milk because of his issues. So almond milk is for him if we ever have like homemade granola or something like that, and he needs a milk substitute. This is something else. These are our butternut squash from last year's garden. This is something else that I hope to have shelves on the end here for, so we can just stack these on the end. Right now I've just kind of got them tucked in various places. Alright, so last is our tote. Oh, almost forgot the coffee. This is Kip's favorite coffee, Kicking Horse, which we get on Amazon. This is my favorite cocoa powder. which I get from Super Vital Foods. Because of my mold allergy, I have to be really careful with chocolate. And this is one that they test for mold and mycotoxins. And so I am able to have this and have no allergic issues. So in here, when I get the cranberries, I'll put some cranberries in Ziploc bags in here. We do mangoes kind of as a treat. Coconut flakes I use in granola. The kids actually just like to eat it plain as a snack as well. Got coconut flour, which I used to use a lot, but I don't use it much anymore. Kip will just get it if he finds it on sale though, and I have that in case we need it. Baking soda is in here. Chocolate bars. This is our favorite chocolate, guys. Alter Eco. And again, this is a type of chocolate that I can eat even with my mold allergy. I did a lot of research to find a company that produces chocolate that's mold and mycotoxin free. So Alter Eco is the brand that we get, and it's kind of the treat for the children and I. Kip's not a big fan of dark chocolate. He'll take some milk chocolate once in a while, but he's not a huge fan. But the children and I all love to have a little square of dark chocolate, not every day, but most days. So each of us gets one chocolate bar per week, except for the little ones, of course. That's something that is a real motivator and a treat for us here on the homestead. All right, so that's the tote. There's a few more items that I have not put in here. I can't remember them off the top of my head. We're still working on filling up all these shelves. So I've got 1, 2, almost 3 shelves completely filled with a month's worth of all of these items, and then 3 other shelves that we've just started on. They're pretty empty still. We have a lot to put over here. So the way we've been doing it is the as your order, buying in bulk, and then every week I just kind of add a few extra items to the grocery list, and then we just stash them away in here. So my plan is to, once all of the shelves are complete with all the products that we need for the 6 months, then we'll just rotate through the shelves. We'll empty, say, the bottom shelf over here into our kitchen pantry, and then instead of moving everything around, we'll just then fill that shelf back up, and then we'll rotate. The next month we'll go on to the next shelf, and then the next shelf, and that way we'll be sure to eat the oldest food first. And so we've never done this before. Hopefully it works well. All right, so I don't want to forget sweetener. We use pretty much raw honey as our main sweetener. I sometimes get maple syrup, but that's kind of just like a treat for a birthday or a special holiday. And then other than that, sometimes a little bit of stevia. Kip can't stand stevia, so it's just the children and I that I sometimes add a little bit of stevia to make the honey last a little bit longer. We use Rev Honey and buy in bulk. We also have used Honey Hive Farms, so both local raw honey sources where we can buy in bulk. So I've got a 5-gallon bucket here on the shelf. It's raw honey, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 more over here, and I keep 1 bucket in the kitchen. And what I do is I just fill up 2 half-gallon jars every couple weeks or so. I use a big soup ladle and a funnel, and so I just fill up those jars and use the honey from the jars. It's easier than trying to get into the bucket every time. So we've got the honey, I've got black beans, I've got some einkorn flour, I've got the whole einkorn berries that we can grind in our grain mill, which is not hooked up at the moment, but I'm looking forward to getting our hand crank grind mill hooked up again. We were grain free, and then we got new cabinets in our kitchen, and so we haven't hooked that up yet. It's a lot more cost effective to buy the whole grains and grind them yourself than to buy the flour, and it's also a lot more nutritious because the nutrition in those grains begins to diminish over time after being ground. On the yellow one we've got popcorn, and orange I believe is the rice, and then we've also got some extra oat flakes in here as well. Hey, how are you two doing?
Good. She has a stinky diaper.
Oh. Someone needs a diaper change. Alright guys, just about done here. Before we finish up this video, I'll go back into our main house and into the kitchen, and got a few more pantry type items in there that I'll show you. And then I have a stinky diaper to change. Never a dull moment as a mama, huh? Alright, so in here is our spices and tea herbs. And this is also where I keep our almond flour, arrowroot flour, and then einkorn flour, and back in the back is some buckwheat flour. So I won't go over everything that's in here, but it's all your basics. We've got our favorite root beer float tea, which is mostly anise hyssop from the garden. Minty tea, which is also from mint that we grow in the garden. We love Dandy Blend, so that's up here. Had a sweet person from Israel send us a box. All kinds of goodies, and that was in it. Thank you so much. Echinacea, all of those must-have kitchen herbs and spices are, this is where we keep them. And then over on the other side here, we've got a few items. This is where I keep our jars of honey. We've got some slivered almonds, which is going to be something that I add to the bins out in the pantry eventually. Got the cocoa powder that we use regularly. Got some dried mango, our coconut flakes. This is where I keep our shortening that we're using. Forgot to mention these. These will go out in the pantry as well. We use Enjoy Life dark chocolate chips. Very delicious. So those will go out in the totes eventually once we get extra of them. Alright guys, thanks for joining me in the pantry today. Thank you to our subscribers who've been sending gifts off of the wish list from Amazon. Really appreciate those gifts that you've been sending. Thank you to all of our patrons as well. We really appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, we pray blessings over you and yours. And whatever you do, do it with your whole heart. Wow, that's a big piece of ice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it cold out there? Yes, but you're all, look at you, you're all nice and cozy warm in your outfit, huh?
Yeah, but I got gloves on.
You got gloves on? Yes, I see that.
But the ice was stick into the glove.
Uh-huh.